So tonight's a real rare treat, and I say that for a bunch of reasons. It's probably more of a rare treat for me because I go so far back with Steve on so many different levels that when Kieran called and asked if I would lasso Steve to do this, I was more motivated by the fact that I was going to get to interview him. Because Steve and I go back to college, we were business partners together, we've been best friends for many, many years. And I was humbled and I was honored, and it means a lot to me to be able to do this with Steve, especially do it here at Diamond View. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but Steve to me has been both a friend, obviously, a partner. He's been a mentor, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. He's been a wine connoisseur to me. He's been many, many things, but the biggest thing he's been to me is a style maven. And I know. And I actually had to take some notes, but Steve is really part of my family in many, many ways, part of my business family, but also part of my personal family. And I truly am honored, and it sounds kind of sappy and goofy, but this date has been marked on my calendar for many, many months, and I keep thinking about it, and it's finally here, and I'm really excited about it. I'm pleased to be here interviewing Steve. But I'll tell you the style maven, he really threw me off. When we went on he stopped being my style maven when we went on a golf trip to Ireland with Steve and some other buddies, and he was headed to Lululemon the entire week. And it's like, dude, you can't play golf in Lululemon, but...
Is this a real estate interview?
Well, it's just part of your life. I mean... Steve's got a new...
Sent me 8 emails this week asking about attire.
Wait, whoa. Ann, where's Ann? Ann, did I tell you? I said the opposite. Steve has a very interesting background, and his background is very similar to maybe like some of you out there, but it's maybe different than others. But Steve grew up in Visalia. He went to the College of the Sequoias, which is a junior college, and it actually is the home of another real estate type here in San Diego, Rick Reeder. He was from Visalia and went to College of the Sequoias. Business degree in accounting at San Diego State. Public accounting with Touche Ross. And Steve and I met at San Diego State. He was a controller for Sunroad. Then he went with Torrey Enterprises, which is Doug Manchester's development company. He was the chief financial officer of Sickles Development. And then Steve and I, let me get this photo. Steve and I had a company called Centermark. And we, among other things, developed office buildings, and there we are, handsome young men in those hard hats. And we had a development company. We went bust in about 1993. Steve moved back up home to Visalia and then joined Richard Allen, and then he took off like crazy, and I just kind of stayed stagnant. Steve went with Richard Allen, and then they subsequently sold their portfolio to Kilroy. He ran Kilroy for many years, and that actually do what Steve Scott does now, but Steve ran Kilroy here locally, and then he formed Sistera Development shortly thereafter. In addition to all of that, Steve is basically a pure developer, which is very unusual in today's time. And in pure development, let me show you some of the projects that he's built. He will never talk about this stuff, so I will. On the left is Diamond View. So Steve developed this project that we're sitting in here right now. And I mean, you think about the vision in 2006, 2007, when he had that vision to develop this project. It is timeless, there's nothing like it, and Steve's going to give us a little bit of that in just a minute. The Biodeck IDEC campus, which is 770,000 square feet, which is located right up of Nobel in the 805. Cisco Amsterdam, that must have been fun. Yeah, I would think that would be. Whoa. That's 1.6 million square feet he developed on behalf of Cisco. Cisco Boston, not as much fun, was a 4 million square foot project. Gateway at Torrey Hills, where Steve offices now, which you've seen up off the just east of Sorrento Valley. And then his newest project, which is under construction as we speak, just cat-a-corner from us, is the new Sempra facility, the build-a-suit for Sempra Energy. And Steve's also working on another block that he'll maybe talk a little bit about. So, Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about Diamond View and kind of what, I mean, I think it's epic that we're all here. What's really cool is that Steve developed it, had this vision. He sold it to a firm, we bought it a couple of years ago, and here we are, he and I being dear friends in this facility he bought, we own, and it's an epic night and all of you are here. I think that's pretty special. So what do you think about Diamond View?
Thank you for the nice introduction as well, Dennis. Diamond View, I was never a big fan of downtown. Almost all the development I'd done previously with the Allen Group and Kilroy was in the North City market where all the job growth occurred. And one day we got a call from Arrowhead Insurance, who had planned on going into a building in Center Field. And we'd done a build-to-suit for Arrowhead back in Sorrento Mesa in, I think, 95 or 96. And the Padres had made the decision not to build a building for them. They weren't going to be developing office. And Arrowhead said, do you mind if we call Steve and see if he'll build a building in Center Field for us? So we thought, well, that's a great opportunity. We have almost a substantially leased office building in Center Field. That's a pretty strong attractor to come downtown. This area was unrecognizable at the time. It felt unsafe to walk around. There were homeless people everywhere, and it took a fair amount of vision and a fair amount of luck to see this through. But ultimately, we had a project approved by Civic San Diego in Center Field for Arrowhead, and then there was some controversy about whether the park at the park was as big as the voters had envisioned when they passed Prop C, and ultimately it went to City Council, and the City Council said you need to increase the size of park at the park, and Center Field and the building for Arrowhead Insurance went by the wayside. But during that time, we gained more and more understanding of what was happening down here and the synergy that was starting to develop, and the left field had been identified as a project that Bosa was going to do, the Legends next door, and then this site was available, and the Padres hadn't yet decided, or JMI hadn't yet decided what the appropriate use was here. But Arrowhead couldn't wait any longer to meet the schedule, but we thought, given what was happening down here, we thought 325,000 feet was a manageable size building to build. Our project cost was a little over $100 million. And we had a commitment from Cox early on and Comerica to take about 35% of the project. So with those components and the excitement that was happening with the ballpark, the Padres were actually pretty good back then. We thought we'd give it a go and see if we could put something together. So Gordon Carrier, a good friend of Dennis's and mine, got involved and designed this building. And we thought we needed to differentiate it from other downtown office buildings. This is the first, and until Sempra's done, the only office building in East Village of anywhere near this magnitude. There also had only been one other office building built in downtown in 20 years, and that was 655 Broadway that Rob Langford did. So it was a little bit of a pioneering effort, but we felt confident that we could lease the remaining couple 100,000 feet, and it turned out the economy was fairly robust when we delivered it, and we hit the market just right, and we leased, it seemed like, a floor every other week or so. But
Steve, you said that you thought there'd be, after you leased Cox, the 35% pre-lease, I think you said there's got to be 65% more baseball weenies who just are in love with baseball.
We did, actually. So we did. One of the unique things about the building, though, is whether you're high, like most people like to be in a building, or down low, you have a great experience because you're connected to the ground plane, what's happening at the park and the ballpark. So there's a lot of interest no matter where you are in the building. So, and it turned out very, very well. We wanted to put some unique features in the building. This space, Jason, do you remember how much this space cost to add to the 1.2 million to add this space? But we thought it was really unique, and there wasn't anything like it downtown. And we had no income pro forma for this space. And Dennis, I asked him before we got together here tonight how much you're currently earning out of the space, and he said $400,000 a year. So, that's a pretty strong return for a $1.2 million investment. But it became one of those attractive features to the space. We wanted to attract a health club to the building, so we actually worked with Equinox out of New York for quite a while to try to bring them to San Diego, but they needed to have 2 locations here, and that didn't happen. But we ended up putting Fit Athletic in the second floor, which is, if you haven't seen that athletic club, it's a terrific athletic club. They've got a pool, and so we had enough bells and whistles, we thought, to fill the remaining couple 100,000 feet of space here, and ultimately it worked out well.
Steve is, this mic's a little delayed. Steve is, you'll see tonight, is probably one of the smartest people I know, and in all seriousness, he really is. But he uses his intelligence in a pretty effective and efficient way. He's got a tremendous command of the financial side of the business, coming up through the financial side, obviously in accounting and public accounting and the chief financial officer, etc. But he's unique because he's equally comfortable with design. He probably knows more about architecture than the sum of all of us in this room. He certainly knows more about landscape architecture than the sum of all of us in this room. He's a sports enthusiast, lover of art, lover of women, no, lover of art, fashion, design, current events. He can pretty much talk about anything, and we'll get into some of that tonight. True Renaissance man, and he's an accountant. It's really twisted up. You grew up in Central Valley, Norman Joan, great people. How did you get from Visalia to where you are now? Other than driving down the 99.
Yeah, 300 miles. I don't know, I grew up in a really wonderful small town. I look back at my childhood as really idyllic. It was kind of Midwestern-like. It was farm country, and I lived in a neighborhood. We could get 20 kids together like that to play sports. We played sports every day after school, no matter what sport it was. And I had really supportive parents, and I had, some mentors over the years, and I just had a lot of good fortune and just a good road.
When you're at the college's equation, the junior college, you're going to come down to San Diego State. You probably thought, I'm probably going to be an accountant the rest of my life. Did you was that part of your deal, or not so much so?
No, I actually started as a chemistry major in college, and
I told you, you're smart.
That was completely misguided. But my favorite high school teacher was a chemistry teacher, and then I was his lab assistant as a senior high school, and he said, you should be good at chemistry. And I wasn't very good at chemistry. But so I started as that, and soon knew I was in over my head, had no interest in it, and I came to San Diego and started in general business, and I had a roommate who had gone to Stanford, but had come down here he was working for Ernst & Young. And he said, you might like accounting. And so I started taking accounting classes, and it was like, bingo, the light just came on, and it was something that made sense to me, the concept.
How many people go bingo with accounting? I mean, come on, anybody out there do bingo? It's like, are you joking me? I'm in this class, get me out.
I collected baseball cards as a kid, I think that helped.